we've just seen some really interesting news out of China, and this could be making or potentially breaking, we'll see, but I'm guessing making the alt season that we all could be currently expecting. So we'll talk about that in a second here. We also are seeing I would say a pretty palpable shift within the X kind of sentiment, or the crypto Twitter sentiment in the overall space. So I want to talk about a little bit about that as well. Also, we've got some trading updates that we'll be going over today. So, but before we go and kind of get started down through all of that, welcome back to the channel. As I mentioned, we're going to be talking about kind of the state of the overall crypto market today. Some really important pieces of news coming out. So let's not waste any more time. We'll go on ahead. We'll dive right in, starting out with crypto bubbles, just because we can see pretty nice green day here. Obviously we've got a couple reds here and there, but overall I would say the market looking really nice. Some Solana kind of applications, I guess I would say, doing quite well here. Some layer ones doing particularly well here. We're actually going to be having a video coming out here in a second on Sonic. That's going to be later today, actually. So if you want to learn a little bit more about Sonic and what's up with that, obviously we can see up almost 60% on the week. So really off to a kind of a flying start here for Sonic. I guess maybe not start, but again, we'll talk about more about that in the later video if you are interested. We can see Virtual seeing a really nice bounce here. This has done quite well for us today. We did take a long position there, so we'll be talking a little bit about that. But also, the market's just looking pretty good overall. We are starting to see, like I said, some of that sentiment shift. Maybe we have seen some of the bottoms. Again, you never know. You never know for sure. But maybe we have started to see some of those bottoms coming in. So if we look at the fear and greed index, you can see we are actually moving up towards the top end of neutral. We still have not dropped into fear. I was thinking it could have been possible. Who's to say, right? We'll have to see where we go. Given the kind of current sentiment, I don't know that we will see it drop back into fear, just because, I think we'd have to see kind of one last final push to the downside, a kind of a final capitulation type of push. Frankly, I don't know that we've got that in us. I think that the market's kind of pretty exhausted from like a selling perspective. So I'm not sure that we really have much of that left. We probably, if I had to take a guess, again, your guess is as good as mine, and particularly short term. I mean, that's really all it is it's just a guess. There's not really a whole lot to say, one direction or the other. But if I had to take a guess, I do think that we have probably seen the bottoms here. If we do look, we could see liquidations starting to kind of climb back up almost 2x from yesterday. So, coming back around, but again, $250 million. A good amount, but still low from what we've seen, at least relatively in the past. Open interest continuing to kind of climb up here a little bit as well. And then volume, again, still low, but it is coming up a little bit. So that's kind of what we're seeing here. The big news of the day here is we can see that China has just started printing an absolutely unbelievable amount of money. I mean, look at this. That is insane. So, that this is basically kind of the theory or the rationale behind why this is potentially a bullish thing for cryptos, because the amount of money that China is printing right now is absolutely staggering. And so why this is important is because what's going to happen here, at least within the Chinese economy, is a couple of different things. So first off, kind of the thought or the reasoning as to why China has to print so much money is because China, if you weren't already aware, is kind of in like this crippling debt crisis. And so when you're in a debt crisis, there's a couple of different things that you can do to get out of it. First one, pay off the debt. This is what most normal people have to do. If any of us were to get into debt, we need to pay that off. Second thing would be declare bankruptcy. Probably not going to be the greatest option for a federal government, especially when they have the third option, which is print more money. And the print more money is usually the option taken, because if you go the first route, you usually either have to cut spending or raise taxes, or both. None of those particularly popular when everybody's kind of looking for a free lunch or some equivalent of, and especially when you have to cut spending, it's like, well, who do you cut it from? How much do you cut it? It's politically a very difficult decision to make, particularly when you're in this kind of like up only growth type of thing, using debt to kind of leverage a lot of that and sustain a lot of that. And so that's kind of the position that I would say most of the world economies have gotten themselves into. And so if we go back and look at the China chart, we can see China has taken the third option, and to be honest, this is the option that I would say most governments take, and that is the option via the money printer. And so why this is important is because what we can see here is China, obviously we don't have exact numbers here, but China probably was about 65 K here. Again, this is 65,000 billion. So I don't know, it's late to do math, but probably 65 trillion yuan. Well, now they're up over this, probably to about 110, 115 trillion yuan. Again, this is almost doubling in the span of like a quarter, because I think this is recorded. Actually, this is just monthly. So they did this just in 1 month. I mean, that is crazy numbers here in just 1 month. And so this is signaling a big shift, because this is, in my opinion, and just kind of based on what we've seen historically happen in various countries, both throughout distant and recent history, this is probably going to push inflation pressures on the Chinese people and just the Chinese, basically anything that the yuan touches, it's going to push it extremely high. And so in relation, other currencies or other assets that are not inflating as dramatically are going to essentially raise relative to the Chinese yuan. So, here we are, we're thinking Bitcoin, we're thinking just crypto generally. This is usually a very, very good thing for crypto. Again, it's not that crypto is getting more valuable, it's that the assets it's trading against are getting comparatively less valuable. And so when we see a number like this is a ridiculous amount of money to push into the ecosystem so quickly. I'm even wondering if this kind of borders us on hyperinflation for the Chinese, kind of economy and government, all that type of stuff. So we'll have to see how it goes. I'm really interested to kind of see how this goes, and also how it trends, right? I mean, maybe we even see this continue to kind of kick up, and we see this going for February, March, April. Maybe we're at quadrillions of yuan by the end of 2025, which would be pretty nuts. So we'll have to kind of just keep a close eye on that, see how that's going. The market has not really reacted to this yet. So I want to take a quick look at the charts and what we're seeing here. I know we usually track Bitcoin. Today I want to pull up ETH, just because we've seen ETH kind of be a little bit weaker, but we've also seen some pretty interesting moves out of ETH. And really, the whole market isn't doing much, frankly. Bitcoin started to move a little bit to the upside, but this is kind of the story for most of the market. We can see here the Bollinger Band's really squeezing pretty tight. It'll be interesting to see what happens here. RSI starting to come back to neutral. Again, anything that the larger the alts, the closer to neutral they are, and the overall better, like healthier position that they're in, we could potentially be seeing some pretty nice moves out of Ethereum here over the next couple months. Lots of interesting things have been coming from Ethereum, so we'll have to see, but what we can see, of course, over the past couple weeks, nothing really of note or substantial happening. But again, usually when we see Bollinger Band squeeze, this is preparing for a point of a high level of liquidity or a high level of volatility, is I guess probably how I should say that. And so again, we don't know if it's to the upside or the downside, but we are kind of like, that's usually what we see. And with the money printers being turned on and turned on in such a dramatic fashion in China, if I had to guess, it's probably going to be kind of favoring the upside. But again, we do not know for sure, so you cannot take that as a sign of where it's going to go for sure. Now, if we look here, we did open a couple of trades when we were seeing some of these lows happen here. I did say that the market was looking kind of overextended. Who knows how long it was going to stay overextended, a lot of that type of stuff. So we did open a whole bunch of trades here on Solana, Bitcoin, ICP, and virtuals. You can see all of these up in pretty decent profits so far. The ICP trade, the virtuals trade was down yesterday, but it's come back, and it's come back really strongly, which is good. If you are interested in trading along or wanting to kind of figure out how to trade yourself, I do have that link in the description below to BTCC. This is a really, really nice time to start opening your positions. Again, not financial advice, but in my opinion, when we're seeing the market overextended, when do you want to be buying? Right here or right here? Well, in my opinion, right here is the nice place to be. Even right here, when we're about to see a period of high volatility. One thing that I was considering last time when we were looking at Solana, and we were seeing this type of thing happening with Solana, is what if you did kind of, I think in options trading they call this an iron condor strategy, is what if you just placed some a long and a short, and you place some very, very, very high leverage, you're expecting to get liquidated. You would need to trade these isolated and put stop losses here, but you're expecting to get liquidated basically at this point if you're taking a short, and this point if you're taking a long. And because what you're looking here is, since the Bollinger Bands are squeezing so tight, you're expecting a period of very, very high volatility. And so with this high volatility, if you take both the long and the short, of course you're going to lose one direction or the other. But because what you're basically playing for is, this is delta neutral. Delta neutral meaning if you go, like, if the price goes up to here, you are at zero. If the price goes down to here, you're zero, because the gains are being offset by the losses that you're making. Where you start to profit is coming outside of this band. Again, assuming that you're putting your bands kind of equidistant. These are not quite equidistant. Actually, in order to make these equal, we'd probably need to do it about like that. But after that, whichever direction it goes, you're essentially going to be making profit outside of that band. And when you're expecting a period of high volatility, that's kind of what you're looking for, right? I mean, you're expecting to lose one of these two directions, but you're expecting the other direction to be essentially far outside what you'd be looking at kind of in this range. So you basically take one expecting to lose the other, and then, obviously you profit off of the other much, much higher than you would otherwise. So just an option. Again, not financial advice. You should really look into that if that's something you are considering, and make sure that you understand the mechanics of leverage trading to make sure that you don't get wrecked. Because again, like I said, you need to understand, set your stop losses, make sure that you're setting them very, very tight, and you're setting them kind of equidistant from each other. And again, of course, this all is contingent on a really, really strong break one direction or the other. So anyway, just a thought there. And like I said, got all the links and the stuff below if you are interested. 10% deposit bonuses is really, really good. Also, no KYC or VPN, and then additional bonuses up to $10,055. So if you are interested, want to get started and trading some of this type of stuff and figure it out. As we can see, 3x, 3x, 5x, 5x. I think the bottom two are blocked by my picture, but very, very low leverage here. This is nothing crazy, but you can see even on these nothing crazy trades, we're still up 20%, 9%, 35%, and 55%. So, pretty nice moves overall here. I'm quite pleased with what we're seeing so far. We'll kind of see how it trends on over the next couple of weeks, but things looking good here. Moving on, I wanted to go over two quick things that we've been seeing kind of circulating through the Twitterverse. The first one is Lark Davis is actually going into Litecoin, which is pretty interesting. This I have considered doing myself because it's an interesting play that stands out to me, because essentially I think the market has generally accepted that Litecoin is kind of the silver to Bitcoin's gold. Again, this is not like widely, consensus, but I think there's a lot of people who kind of accept this. And if that's the case, Litecoin is not a quarter of the market cap of Bitcoin, not even close. And so, there is the possibility, because the Litecoin ecosystem is basically 4-to-1 for Bitcoin. So there's 84 million Litecoin, there's 21 million Bitcoin. There is the possibility that we could see this kind of silver to gold type of comparison. And if we do, I think Litecoin could stand to do really quite well from an appreciation perspective, if people kind of take on with that and a lot of that type of stuff. So just something to think about. Again, not investment advice. You need to make your own decisions. You need to do your own research. You may completely not buy into the Litecoin kind of theory there. So just do your own research. Just an idea that I saw, and I also have been kind of considering this, and so I want to talk a little bit about that in more detail. Also, kind of on the other side of that fence, we've got Bitcoin here. Gold actually just crossed a $20 trillion market cap, and Bitcoin is less than $2 trillion now. So, I know a lot of people compare Bitcoin to digital gold. There's a lot of institutions adopting it. There's a lot of governments adopting it, a lot of that type of stuff. Maybe you can intuit what that could possibly mean in the long term. Again, nobody knows anything for sure, but this is kind of a play that I look at, and I think it's a very, very compelling one. So something for you to think about. Again, not investment advice. These are just things that I kind of like to think about and I like to talk about on the channel. Of course, I want to bring them to you as well, so you can also think about them. You don't have to act on them, but you can at least think about it as a thought experiment of how this could potentially impact the market in various different ways. So anyway, that's all I've got for you today. Hopefully you did find the information in this video useful. If you did, please do give me a like and a subscribe. It really, really does help me out. If you have any other comments, questions, concerns, thoughts, whatever, just drop those in the comment section. I do try to read and respond to all of those. Again, I've been quite busy lately with more of the comments coming through. So just give me a couple days. I apologize if I'm not as timely as I used to be, but I do promise that I do read and respond to all of them. So if you haven't seen anything yet, just have a little patience. I will get there, I promise. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.